In this video, I'm going to show you how to interpret expressions on algebra. So this is for week 4. Your quiz is going to cover what I'm about to do on Friday in week 4. So this lesson talks about real-world problems and then try to express those problems using equations, expressions, variables, and numbers. So let's get started. It says in the first box, given a real-world situation, an expression or parts of an expression, such as like terms, factors, coefficients, they have meanings. That's what this lesson is about. So the first example says a class visited the aquarium for a field trip. There were X students and Y teachers who visited the aquarium. So X is the number of students, and Y is the number of teachers. So this right here is number of teachers, just to make sure that Y. X is not given in there, in the expression that I see over here. Who visited the aquarium? The tickets to the aquarium costs S dollars for the students. So this one here, the amount of dollar for students. So let's say that's $10, okay? Let's say that S equals to $10. Plus 5 would mean add $5 more on top of that $10 when you're trying to figure something out about the teachers. That's what it looks like. Let's just read the rest of the question. And by the way, when you have a word problem, when you have an algebra problem, it's always easier if you can break it down into parts and try to make sense out of what you just read and then take notes of what you read. That's how I solve all these questions. The expression below represents the total amount spent on teachers' tickets to the aquarium. So this expression tells me how much money they spent for all of the teachers. So what I'm looking at here is like for the teachers, they're spending $5 more than a student's ticket. That's what I'm kind of thinking about, that expression. Now, I need to go through all of the answers. I'm not going to jump on any of them. Just because what I said, I'm not going to try to find exactly what I said. I'll see all of these answers and cross out the ones that makes no sense at all, and then I'll leave the ones that kind of make sense, and then I will decide which one should be the one that makes the most sense. So which statement is the best interpretation of the expression in everyday language? So the number of teachers who attended the field trip was 5 more than the number of students who attended the field trip. Now, I want to bring your attention to here. This plus 5 was about the dollars. So that's like $10 for a student's ticket, and I'm adding 5 on top of it. So I'm talking about the amount that was spent for a teacher's ticket, because that's the number of teachers, this right here, number of teachers. Y was the number of teachers. So if I have 30 teachers, and if I'm spending that much money, when I multiply them, that shows me the total amount that is spent for the teacher's tickets. So that means I'm not talking about the number of students and teachers exactly. I'm talking about the amount that we spent for the teacher's tickets in total. The number of students who attended the field trip was 5 more. Again, we are not talking about the number of teachers or students being 5 more. This right here, S, was the amount of dollars, and I'm adding 5 to that one. So I'm adding 5 to the dollars amount. I'm talking about money, not the number of students or teachers. The price of a teacher's ticket was $5 more than the price of a student's ticket. So I'm leaning on this. I think this is the answer, but I just want to double check. I want to see what the last answer is, and then I will see which one is better. The price of a student's ticket was $5 more than the price of a teacher's ticket. So in real world, the one that makes the most sense is C, but then again, we should make sure that what this says is the same as C. Just because it makes more sense than D in real world, it doesn't mean that the answer should be C. Get back to the question. It's talking about students' dollars. Just make up a number like $10 for a student's ticket, right? And then what this says, that $10 plus $5 for a teacher. So the teacher's ticket is $5 more than the student's tickets. That would be C. So please, when you watch this video, make sure to have a piece of paper, take notes of all of this, try to do the same things that I've done, because in the past I've seen hundreds of high schoolers. I know that you're not going to utilize this method, but if you can make a habit of this, it's going to get easier for you to solve these Algebra 1 questions. Otherwise, you're going to struggle a lot, because it's too many words, and then we all know how high school students feel about word problems. No one likes them. But if you can break it down like this, it's going to get way easier than just plainly reading it and trying to make sense out of the answers. Okay, moving on to example 2. Okay, the total amount Georgia paid for her lunch, including tax and tip, is represented by the expression below. So, which statement best describes 0.0825 times x? Right here. Okay, the expression that you're looking for is this part. I'm thinking this is probably the amount that Georgia paid for the text, but I will see what it says, because it's multiplied by a percentage. That's like if this product is $100, you're going to pay 7% for the text, and that's kind of look like that. But let's see what it is. Oh, I want to see the question. Paid for her lunch, including the text and tip. So the tip is not a percent value. So for this, we need to have kind of real life knowledge. Let me just bring this down over here. That's my question. So let's say I go to a restaurant, I order some stuff, and then it costs $50, and then I'll pay tax on top of that $50. It's going to be a percentage of the original amount, like 7.25% or 8.25%. That's what it looks like. This looks like an 8.25%. That's 8.25%. And here is how you can make that conversion. If you have a decimal, if you're going to convert it to a percentage, all you have to do is multiply it by 100, 0.0825. And then if you grab a calculator and then multiply this by 100, it's going to turn into a percent value, which is going to be 8.25%. That's definitely the text amount. Multiply the original amount, which is the x. It could be any number of dollars. Multiply that by 8.25%, and then you get your text. So this part looks like is the text. Total text paid. And then that 2 plus 2, what does that look like? That looks like a bad tip. So the tip is not a percent value. When you go to a restaurant, you look for the quality of the service you get. That's your only criteria, or at least it should be your criteria. It's not like if I'm getting $100 of a product, I'm going to pay 10% of it as a tax. Or if I'm getting $1,000 of a product, I'm going to pay 10% of a tax. The tax usually remains kind of the same. It changes, but not directly related to the percentage. So let me see the answers. It is the amount of her lunch entry. This is the x. It's the amount of the tip. The tip is the $2 in the end. That's $2. So these are wrong. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. It is the amount of the text. That looks like the answer. It is the amount of her beverage. No, that's included in x. So that would be my answer, C. So process of elimination is going to be your best buddy in Algebra 1. Just cross out the ones that makes no sense. If you know that it is wrong, just cross it out. When you have 4 options to choose from, you have 25% chance if you're going to guess. But if you can cross two of those answers out, and then your chance is going to increase to 50%. So even if you're going to guess, make sure it is an educated one. At least try to cancel out some of the options that is impossible. But the only way of doing that is if you can break down the question and make sense out of what you read. If you're struggling with comprehension, it's going to get harder when we deal with word problems, which is going to be the case for almost all of the Study Island assignments. Study Island deals with word problems, higher rigor type of questions. So make sure to break down the questions, and as you go, take notes of this, because they're going to help you when you start doing your blue ribbon. Okay, let's see the next example. Okay, complicated expressions can be interpreted by viewing one or more of their parts as a single entity. Now, which interpretation for the given expression is correct? So the product of P, let's talk about the meaning of product, just because I saw that right there. So the product means multiplication. So this 2t or 2 times t, you can also read this as the product of 2 and t. That's how you can read it. So I'm looking at here, the only product that I'm seeing is I'm seeing one product over here, the product of n and t. That's one thing, but it doesn't mean that we always need to express it that way. You may not see it, the product of n and t in the answers. Just because it is a thing, it doesn't mean that it's the only way to say it. And also another product is the product of p and 1 plus r over n. So these are the two different products that I'm seeing, because it's p times, when you multiply, that's the product of two things. And then also it's the same for n, t. Even though there's nothing between them, that means multiplication. If you just see letters next to each other, this is a product, this is the product of a and b, or a times b. They are the same, just different ways of saying the same thing. Okay, so let's see the first answer. The product of p and the factor dependent on p. So factors are expressions that you multiply it by another thing, such as. So the factors of, okay, if someone asks you, what are the factors of this? One of the factors of this expression is 5. We had an IXL assignment about this in week 3. Yes. So the other factor of this is x plus 6. If you have two products or multiple products, each one of those products are factors of the expression. So if I add this right here, x minus 3, don't try to make sense out of what you see. You don't need to. I'm trying to tell you what factors are when you have an expression. Now, we have 3 factors up here. The first one is this number. The second factor is that expression, x plus 6. The third factor is x minus 3. So looking at our example, I have 2 factors. One of them is here. That's one factor. And then the product of p and the factor. So that's what I'm looking at, the product of p and the factor. So the product of p and the factor. This part is a check mark. The product of p and the factor. Okay. The sum of p and the factor. I will talk about those two later on. Let's just focus on this part. What does this c and d mean? Because they start with the same phrase. The sum of p and the factor. The sum of p and the factor. Let me show you how the product of p and the factor would look like. So for c and d, the product of p, the sum of p, when it says the sum, put a plus in the middle. And then put the other two things on the right side of and on the left side of and. Those are going to be the things that you're going to put on the sides of these two. Here we go. the sum of, that's my word, and let's see what I am adding. Sum means add them together. So the things that I'm adding, the first one is right here. Add this one and a factor. So these two things are the things that I'm going to add according to D. So one thing is P. Let's put it over here. The other one is a factor. A factor usually stays in parentheses. It's usually more than one term, such as this. Or, now let's talk about being dependent on P, not dependent on P, or independent. So either not dependent or independent, they are the same thing. So let's just talk about D, okay? I'm going to show you how D would look like. Actually, this would look like D. Let's just cross this out and just make it D. Let me tell you why. When it says not dependent on P, it means it has nothing to do with P. When you look at that expression, you wouldn't see any P, such as 5P, P over 2, P plus 3. You wouldn't see those. Looking at here, in the factor part, a factor not dependent on P, this is just one phrase, a factor not dependent on P. The not dependent on P describes the factor. Now, this factor is not depending on P because it has nothing to do with P. Inside the parentheses, it's just x plus 7. Let's talk about C. How would it look like if I'm talking about the sum of P and the factor that is dependent on P? Now, here is C. The sum, put that in the middle, of P and a factor dependent on P, such as P minus 3, or 5P, or P over 2. It should have something to do with P. That's what dependent on P means. So that's why these C and D are wrong, because it says the sum of P and another thing. You don't have the sum of P, we have the product of P and a factor. So these two are gone. Now, what I need to decide is just pick whether the factor depends on P or not. Looking at the green part, that's my factor. Does that depend on T? So the answer can be given by looking at the letters. Do any of them has anything to do with P? One doesn't have a P, R does not have a P, N does not have a P. So this does not depend on P. Not dependent on P. So these questions should not take any longer than 30 seconds or so when you know the meaning of these terms. And this is me teaching you the meanings of those terms. This is not me solving the questions plainly. If you're thinking that, heck, why is this taking forever? It's because you probably don't know what factor means. You probably don't know what dependent and independent means. And instead of just giving you pages of notes so you can start writing them down, this is my way of giving you the notes, explaining what the terms are. This is why it is important for you to take notes when I solve the study island questions over here. Because I'm not just solving the questions by assuming that you know every single thing that you see over here. I'm assuming that you don't know any of this and then explaining it one term at a time. That's why it is taking forever. Normally, this question takes 30 seconds. If you know what dependent means, if you know what independent means, if you know what factor is. But these videos are going to be long because the blue ribbon questions are higher rigor than IXLs. And the only way for me to teach this concept to you is doing it step by step, explaining what each word means. So if you feel like the videos are too long, I'm sorry, but it needs to be too long because this is the only way for me to teach you how the lesson works. So that would be my answer. The product tells me to multiply the P by another factor, and it says not dependent because it has nothing to do with P, that green expression. Okay. And if you have any questions about any of these, please make a comment and give me the number of example. Like say, Mr. Abdullah, I didn't understand example 3. I understand why you're doing this and that, but that part is confusing. So can you elaborate on that one a little more, and then I will record another video. Okay, now let's talk about this part. Symbolized with expressions. Given a real world situation, an expression or parts of an expression can be interpreted in the context of a situation. Now, let's look at this. A rectangular prism has a width that is 3 times the length and the height that is 5 times the width. Very complicated if you just read it. If you break it down, it'll make more sense. I know you're not going to start doing this up until probably the second semester because you're not going to think that it is very important. By the time you realize how significant breaking down these questions is, it might be a little too late for you to make up for those missing assignments, for those low grades. So please try to get this as a habit. When you solve a question, try to break it down. So if I just look at that, to be honest, I'm going to be lost if I try to solve this question without breaking it down as much as possible. So before getting into details, I want to see what the question is first so that I can focus on that part. Write a statement that best describes 15b. What I'm thinking, this is probably one of the dimensions of the rectangular prism that I have, such as it could be the width, it could be the height, or it could be the length. It's probably either one of those, but probably. Now let's see. It has 3 dimensions because it's a 3D figure, rectangular prism. Let's just write them down. A width, and then it has a length, and then a height. If I write it down this way, for me, it's going to be way easier. So let's see what it says. It's a width that is 3 times the length. What does that mean? The width is 3 times the length. That's what it tells me. W equals to 3L because it says 3 times the length. And let's talk about the height. The height is 5 times the width. Now, which one would be the smallest then? So that's something that you need to figure out. So the width is greater than length, right? Let me just put it this way. The width is greater than the length. And then height is greater than the width. Height is greater than the width. That sign reads as greater than when you read it from left to right. Height is greater than width. The width is greater than the length. And I know that because if I need to multiply the width 5 to get the height should be bigger than the width. Same thing applies to here. The width should be greater than length. Okay? So once I figure this out, I'm going to give the smallest value to this. Length, it should be the smallest thing. So length is the smallest. Let's say the length is x. Okay? I just made up a letter. And then the width is 3 times that value. Multiply this by 3 for the width. The width is going to be 3 times x. And then the height is going to be 5 times the width. Here's my width. I need to multiply this by 5. 5 times 3 is 15. And then x stays there. Okay. Now the length of the prism is represented by the following equation. So right here we have the length. Which one is, okay, let's see, which statement best describes 15b? So, okay, I see that 15b is going to be the height. So this right here, instead of x, they're using the letter b. So, because this right here is the height, this one is the width, and that one is the length. Normally, if you were all in the classroom, I would solve this step by step because while I don't remember the solution, it's probably longer than what I did because what I am doing right now is I'm pairing up. This is not how you solve this question. It's kind of like if I start solving this question step by step, I know that you're not going to watch the video for the rest of it. So I don't want to do it. But if you just look at these expressions, you can just put them up and see that the height is going to be 15b. So this would be the height. Okay? So moving on to the next one. So you see 15b is the height of the prism is 15 times the length of the prism. So 15b would be the height. This is not a multiple choice question. Okay. So you would pick the one that says the height for that 15b because it matches with 15. Can I just take it back? Okay, I really hope that you understand that part. If not, just make a comment. I will record a detailed video for those who need that explanation. I don't want to confuse everyone. Just if you need that detailed explanation, let me know. I will record a separate video because this is going to be way too long in that case. Okay, example 2. So this is the second part of the notes. You had 3 examples in the first section. This is the second section, example 2. Now we are dealing with volume formulas, area formulas. We are trying to plug in the expressions, trying to make sense out of what we see in those formulas. The area of a triangular pennant is represented by the following equation, where B represents the base in centimeters of the pennant. Write a statement that best describes 4B plus 6. So these questions are usually, they're either the base or the height. Let me see what else they have. Okay, they usually are either the base or the height or length, width. We are looking for those words when we are talking about area, volume of figures. Okay. Now the first thing that we need to figure out is the shape that we are dealing with. So we are dealing with a triangle and we are talking about the area. So one thing that you need to know is, and I know many of you don't know this, is the formula of area of a triangle. For my class, I'll tell you what those formulas are if you were in the classroom setting. I would put the formulas on the board because it's understandable if you don't remember them at the beginning of the year. But in the online learning setting, when you have your quizzes, you can look up those formulas. Anyways, you don't need me to put the formula on the board. You can just Google the area of a triangle. You will see the formula and then use it. Okay, that's totally fine. So let's just start with the area of a triangle, which equals to 1/2 times base times height. This is the area of a triangle. So let's see. If I factor this out, this is going to be, let me see. In week 4, this is going to be your Khan Academy and Excel assignments. I think it was week 4 or 5. I think it was 5. Yeah, this is week 4. I was talking about week 5. You're going to have a separate assignment about factoring these out, finding the greatest common factor, pulling it out of the expression. So what we can do in here is make this look like that one. We need a number that is 1/2 in front of everything. The only number that I have is 2 over here, and it's not in front of everything. So the first thing that I can do is take that 1/2 out of the expression. Divide everything by 1/2. So what does that mean? Because this part is going to be confusing for many of you. So what I want you to do is dividing the 2 by 1/2. I'll show you how to do it. So let's just get on Desmos. This is one of the calculators that I'll use a lot. Because it's not going to make sense to you if I just put the answer. When you divide 2 by 1/2, it equals to 4. I'll tell you why later. But here is what you can do. There's a keyboard over here. I want to use that one. If I can click. Come on. Okay. So I want to divide the 2 because I'm taking it out. When you factor a number out of the expression, that means you need to divide the rest of the numbers by that one. So what I'm doing in here, I'm going to factor the 1/2 out of that expression, out of 2, out of the 3. I'm going to factor this out of both of these, which means divide the 2 by that number, divide the 3 by that number. That's what it means. So, and here is how we divide. 2 divided by, right? And then I need to have 1/2 in there. 1/2 is a fraction. So let me see if there's a fraction button. There should be a fraction button up here somewhere. Let me see. Okay, could be the functions. Miscellaneous, is it? Nope. Let's check this one out. Okay, it's not in there. So what I will do then, I'm going to put 1 and divide that one by half. If it looks complicated, don't worry about it. But what it says, when you divide the 2 by 1/2, it gives you 4. The answer is going to be 4. Here is why. Division means when I tell you what's 2 over 1/2 is how many halves do we have in 2. Now, let's just have a hole in here and another hole in here. This is 2. When I want to divide this by 1/2, the question becomes how many halves do we have in 2? So there's 2 halves in here and then another 2 halves in here. I don't know what's wrong with this part. Okay, it worked. 1/2, the second one, the third one, and fourth one. There are 4 halves in 2 holes. That's why the answer is 4. This expression may look complicated to you. There's nothing I can do about that one. But yeah, that's the answer. When you factor out 1/2 out of 2, that 2 becomes 4. And here is how you can see if this is right. Multiply these two because that means the product of 1/2 and 4, which tells you to multiply. 4 times 1/2 gives you 2. So that means, okay, we're on the right track. And then b squared, I'm going to bring it down, plus, what about 3 divided by 1/2? How many halves do we have in 3 holes? In each one, we have 2 halves. In 3, we have 6. If you want to see that, you can just do 3 divided by 1/2. And then the answer is going to be 6 right here. So that 3, when we factor the 1/2 out, becomes 6. And then there's b that I did not touch yet. So if you didn't realize, now my expression is starting to look like what I have. But 1/2s are okay, but I don't have like something times another. All I have is like look like sum, addition. But we can still take out of something out of this. And then, by the way, this is what I'm trying to figure out. 4b plus 6, it's not 4b plus 6, but it's pretty similar. It's 4b squared plus 6b. But what I can do is factor the b out and then make my expression look like that one. Let me show you what I mean. So right here, let's just move on to here. 1/2 was factored out. I'm good with that. But in here, looking at the letters, what do you see in common? What is the thing that you can take out? This one has b squared. That one has b. So the smallest thing that they have in common is b. So if I factor the b out of this and that, let's see what happens. Take that out. B is going to be factored out. And then I have parentheses. This is times, that is times. And then if you did not realize, it's 1/2 times b times, and then whatever this is going to be the height. And it's probably going to be that one. That's going to be my height. That's what I'm thinking. Now, 4b squared, take out of the b, out of this. That means, again, division. Just like I divided everything by 1/2, now I need to divide it by b. I want to see one thing, and it's to see if it works. Let me just test something out. I don't think it'll work, but 4, again, this is just me testing something out. 4b squared divided by, I don't think it'll work, divided by b. Okay, it doesn't simplify it for me. I would, or it could. Okay, here is how we divide the exponentials. Again, this is one of your homework assignments. I don't remember what week or what assignment it was, but you're going to have 2 similar assignments about this one. So 4b squared divided by b. So instead of just giving you the answer, again, I'm going to do this step by step. If you know how to divide it anyways, you can just fast forward this video to the part that you don't know how to do it, and then just see what's going on in there. So 4 times, even though you don't have any multiplication symbol, that's times. B squared tells you to multiply the b by itself twice. That's what b squared means. If it was b cubed, you would do b times b times b 3 times, multiply it by itself, divided by b. So this right here, you can b divided by b, they cross each other out, and then what you have left with is 4b. When you divide 4b squared by b, you get 4b, which goes over here. Okay, now I factored out the b of this plus 6b. Divide that by the same thing, 6b divided by b. These are going to cancel each other out, and then the only thing that is left is 6. Bring it down right by 4b. Now, again, I started with what was given. A of b, this is how I started this question. It was equal to that expression. I factored out the 1/2 first, that was over here, and then I factored the b out. And then now it looks like the area of a triangle formula. Let's just pair everything up. 1/2 are over here. These are the base. And then the only thing left is the height. So that's my height. 4b plus 6, where's that? 4b plus 6 is the height of this triangular tenon. Again, if you have any questions, make sure to refer what section, what example you're talking about. This is section 2, example 2. And yeah, that's it. These are the notes. So, wrapping up, what we did in this lesson, we tried to make sense out of the expressions that are given. It could be a volume expression, it could be an area, or it could be another word problem that we need to figure out what's going on. So, things that you need to pay attention is how to factor out a number when you have an expression, and then how to make the formulas look alike. This one did not look like an area formula at all, but what I did, I factored out the 1/2, and then I factored out the b, and then I ended up with a formula like this, so the answer was height. This right here, I went with the easier way. I made the equation look like the rectangular prism volume formula, and then 15b was for the height, I believe. I'm not sure if it was the height, and then I just paired them up and figure out what the answer was. For the first page, again, if you have area formula, your answer is usually going to be either height, no, my bad, it's either width or length. You got to figure out which one is which. And then try to break down the questions as much as you can. And then if you're dealing with money, your answer should have something to do with money instead of the number of students or teachers. Just pay attention to those kind of details. If you know what you're dealing with, if you're dealing with number of students, then your answer should match. If you're dealing with the dollars amount, your answer should have something to do with those. And same thing in here, you got to know some concepts in real life, such as the tip. How do you pay the tip? Does it have anything to do with percentage? Or the tax, does it have anything to do with the percentage? And if you know the answer, it's going to get easier. If you don't know the answer, I hope you watch the video and know that tax has something to do with the percentage. Okay, it's strictly related to percentage. Tip has nothing to do with the percentage, and that's always the original amount, the initial amount that you pay, X. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, guys.